Welcome back to another episode of the Tradepreneur Show. As promised, we are going to bring back our very special guest. I'm Patrick Summers, host of the Tradepreneur Show. My co-host, Mike Hassa, and sales superstar extraordinaire, friend and business partner, Francisco Rodriguez. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, man. The previous episode was really, really amazing. I think it was.
Well, I think it was kind of fucked up because you made me cry.
As did I. Maybe that was a little therapy there for both of us. Absolutely. I don't know. But it's an amazing story. I mean, I really, I do really admire some of the things you've been through in your journey. And so you're somebody that has an authentic adversity that changed, you physically, and you've overcome it in an amazing way. And what I think is amazing is before that and after that, right, you dominate in your profession, the sales. And when I say dominate, I truly mean dominate, because there was a year where in 8 months you sold how much?
$5.3 million.
$5.3 million in 8 months. And I know when we went to this annual awards banquet for salespeople in the United States and Canada, you were second place.
Mm-hmm.
The person in first place sold how much? Do you remember?
It was just a little over $6 million.
$6 million, but they had 12 months to do that.
Correct.
So technically you're first place. If we go on a rolling,
I would put that.
Yeah, with no problem.
But that was 8 months, 5 million. And before that, you would regularly produce what in sales revenue a year?
My average, when I go back to starting as a technician. As a technician, my average was $1.5 million a year. My biggest year as a selling technician, when I really dialed in my process and got very disciplined and focused on the sales side of it, topped out at $3 million as a selling tech.
Wow. As a selling tech, not a
selling
company.
tech, yeah.
And that was a while ago too, which was much harder to do because of the average cost of a system.
Yeah, that was back in 2000 and got my first million in 2012, and then stayed at $1 million, $1.5 million, then went to 2 million. So 3 million was 2015 or 16.
Now, let me ask you something, because you're a sales professional. And you've had to have some level of sales ability, because I've met Claudia, and that was a sales job. Like, she just didn't jump into your lap. I mean, she probably looked at you and said, "My God, who is this ugly fool?" And so I mean, you had to sell and close.
Do, by the
and
way,
now, yeah, and you guys have a phenomenal relationship, beautiful children. But have you always been good at sales?
I mean, I think I've always, been pretty good at sales. I didn't know, that it could lead me to a career where I'm at. Because I remember when I was little, me and my buddy, his name was Jerome, and we wanted to make money. So what we would do is we would go door knock to clean people's yards. And I remember, like, the crazy story, that, we went to clean this lady's house. It was downstairs from my mom's house. And we're like, "We'll clean your house, just give us whatever you want at the end, money-wise." We're talking money-wise. So she ended up giving us a couple bags of grapefruit. And we're like... She's like, "There you go." So
you turned and thrown it back at the house as you left?
I did. So after that, that's when I realized you got to be very crystal clear with your communication and asking exactly what you're going to be charging for the job.
So, sounds to me like you probably were always a go-getter, right? Like the stories we heard about you learning the trade on the weekends when you weren't even scheduled to work. But you probably realized then that this sales thing, I'm not a natural at, because you got grapefruit, right? But you realized we got to change how we approach this.
Absolutely.
We got to be clear in communication. So that's probably your first sales lesson, right?
Absolutely.
Now, when you got into sales as a technician and whatnot, and I think also the story of you going at a startup and being able to sell those filters and then doing that regularly, obviously I think you had some natural interest, at least, in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you did different things to develop yourself along the way.
Yeah, you know what? For me, I've never really been. I'm not a good reader. I can't read a book to save my life. So what I would do is I listen to videos. I listen to podcasts. And one of the things that I would do when I was coming up, in the trades, and we belonged to an organization, national organization, and then they had a leaderboard on the that we would get reports on every month at what place we ranked as a selling technician. So then what I would do is research the top guys in that leaderboard. And then I would call the owners of the companies if they would allow me to go ride with their technicians, so I could see what they were doing.
Wow. So were you riding with the leaders of the competitors in your space?
Yeah, they were, but most of them were out of town.
Oh, okay. So that makes, wow. And what was that learning curve like? Were there things that maybe they were doing? You're like, whoa, I hadn't even thought about doing that?
Well, absolutely. And I think that the most important thing of me going with them is learning from them, like the discipline that they had of training themselves, educating themselves, like every single day. Like I remember when I used to go ride with them, like the first thing was you had to be there by 5 a.m. because they would meet at Starbucks.
Okay.
They would do like their training before the training at the office.
Okay.
They would have a game plan of what they're going to do. They would have their coffee or whatever it was. They would go work out, and then they would go to the office. But it's one of the biggest keys that I got from it is discipline on a process.
Wow.
So if you're paying attention, so far we've learned that one, you have to be clear in your communication in sales. Two, mentors, right? And those are big takeaways right there, right? And then third, you just said it, process. So you don't just shotgun it.
No, I remember like when we first joined the organization, the top producer back then was doing $2 million as a tech, and I just got lucky and was able to get an elevator with them, and I'm like, Chris, like dude, like can you tell me like how do you close? What's like your secret? He's all, man, I'm gonna tell you, it's the hardest thing ever. He's all consistency. You got to be consistent at what you do. Learn a process that works, a proven process, and be consistent at it every single time. It doesn't matter whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. If you follow that process every single time and stay consistent, you will dominate. And I'm like, that's it? And he's all like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, next year I'm going to kick your ass.
Oh, I love it.
So next year I beat him.
You did?
The following year I did.
Do you, what sort of like honors or achievements do you get as you climb that ladder as far as sales are concerned?
So when it comes, to sales and organization with awards, we get little plaques, and then my biggest achievement, that I would say, it's getting my rings.
What rings?
Oh,
is that what's on?
These rings?
Wow, look at these babies. And there's a story behind each, right?
And one's missing.
Yeah, I have a $3 million ring, but that one I wear to bed.
Your reminder. Your
Yes.
reminder. What did you initiate that in the company, or was
No,
it,
that was
always
going on.
there?
We're a member of a national organization,
Okay.
and where there's some competition in
Yeah.
different departments.
Gotcha.
Different technicians, service, HVAC, sales,
Yeah.
and so you get to a certain level minimum, and you get a ring, and then you get a stone or a different ring for each level up, and so. In fact, we have 2 individuals in the organization that are going to be going to a special award banquet and be recognized with the ring. So it's not internal.
Okay.
It's and you're competing against hundreds
Oh, I love it.
of other salespeople across the United States and Canada.
You're
so-
kind of like the Tom Brady when you think about it. All those rings.
And I think your process and the consistency, what you learn. And here's the most amazing thing is, he'll go out with salespeople and they'll see what he does, and the thing they're most shocked about is he's doing exactly what he trains other people to do. The process, he follows it as good as he is. He follows and doesn't deviate, and they're like, "Oh my God, you actually do that?" He's like, "Yeah, I actually do it." And one of the things I see in my experience within our organization and other organizations is you have technicians or salespeople, and this goes for any type of sales, right? They're going along, they're taught a process, they're following the process, and they get a dry spell, right? It's just whatever's going on, they're having a tough time. So what they do is they end up tweaking their process a little bit because they start to think it's the process.
Okay.
It doesn't work anymore. Or it worked on those people, but we're in a different period where this is going on in the economy, whatever it is. They start tweaking it. They start tweaking it. Start tweaking it to where the process is so far removed from what they were taught. And then what happens? They get a sale, and they're like, "Oh, see, I knew it. This is the new process. This is what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they don't ever hit the numbers they were at. And if they do, it's just haphazard because they get away from the process. And I think one of the greatest lessons to be good at sales is what he said. Follow a proven process and be consistent with it. And if you go to any great restaurant, the top earners at that restaurant follow a process and have a script. And the ones that do, and the ones that can get you to have cocktails, can have appetizers, and the biggest, toughest sale, I think, in the restaurant industry, and people in the restaurant, they're salespeople. They're salespeople, right? They don't give you free chips and crackers and stuff because they want to get you, like, so you order less food. They want to get you to order cocktails, so you're thirsty, right? So, but how many servers do you come across in restaurants that do not consistently offer dessert and have a process to offer dessert? And the ones that do add to the ticket. And guess what? How do people in the service industry in restaurants make money? Tips, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can raise the bill, you can get a bigger tip. And how do you do that? Get people to spend more. And the ones that have a process, just like Francisco talked about, that's an example of, because a lot of sales, there's so many salespeople that are salespeople, and like they're embarrassed to be salespeople. We're all salespeople, even the person you're ordering your dinner from, right?
And I think one of the worst things that can happen to a sales professional, or in this case, like in our organization, a technician, the worst thing that could happen is that they don't follow a process and they happen to stumble on a sale and the client buys it. It's the worst thing that could happen because, like Patrick's saying, that's when they were thinking, "Oh my God, see, I could create my own thing and what I'm doing
My
works."
plan works.
Yeah, and you see it all too often, and you can just watch numbers and you know something's going on. And when you dig into it so many times, it's that they reinvent their own process. They fall away from it. What are some of the other things that you've done and that you train others to do to really find success?
One of the key things that I like doing, and because I did it myself, it's look, if you go to a house, and once you leave that house, if you get in your vehicle, and you start saying, "I should have, I could have, I would have," you didn't do your job. Like, you did not follow the process. You didn't do your job. And I made it a self, accountability, to myself. If I ever got in my truck and started thinking like that, I would get my ass out of the truck and I would go back and knock on the door every single time. And Patrick knows it because I've done it when I'm like, "Dude, I'm going to go back right now." Like, I'm going to go back and knock on the door again.
And in doing that, have you ever gone back and then closed the deal?
Absolutely. Many times.
So is it just a matter for those who are watching of just going back and saying, "Hey, there's one thing I failed to mention that I just want to make sure you knew before I go," or is it just, "I'm sorry, I can't leave you without telling you this," or how do you verbalize it? What's the nuance?
I literally just knock on the door and whatever comes, because like I'm on the go. Like,
Yeah.
I don't pre-plan anything. Like, I know my process, I'm disciplined on what I'm going to do this every single day when it comes to the sales process. But when the conversation I'm going to have, it's going to be on the spot, instant on what I'm going to think of. And most of the time it's going to be like, "Look, I totally missed this information. I was excited about this. I forgot to share this with you and I apologize."
Yeah.
And just ask for an apology and ask if you have another 2 minutes that I can just share with you.
Gotcha. Yeah.
How important is knowing and being comfortable with presenting financing?
Oh, it's the most important thing. Before, I was a believer that people don't finance. But then, looking at, TV ads, if you look at a car, they never say, like, "Come buy this Cadillac for $100,000. Or like, "Come buy it for $599 a month." You don't know it's going to be for 89 months, but
Your lifetime.
yeah. But it's $599, so it's attractive. So one of the things that I do is every call that we go to, and I train our comfort advisors or selling technicians, they got to present finance options. Because look, all you got to do, it's a lot easier presenting a $300 ticket versus a $30,000 unit.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we sometimes forget that everybody wants a deal, likes a deal, or likes a deal that doesn't hurt as much as a lump sum versus, oh, I can stretch it out over a period of time.
Well, and then when it comes to air conditioning, I mean, it's an investment, right? It's not just you're investing in yourself. You're investing in the comfort, the safety, the security of your family. So you just got to put it in a perspective that the client can understand. And most importantly, when you buy a high efficient system, there's a return on your investment. So you're not throwing money away. It's an ROI. What's the ROI? And understanding your numbers on how to show that to the homeowner that guess what, you may be able to save 30, 40, 50% on utility bills, and that money you have two options. I tell the clients you have two options. One, you could continue giving it to a utility company, and if you do, I hope they send you a Christmas card. Or two, you could reinvest it in your family, your safety, your comfort. What option do you prefer to do?
Yeah, of course. And the choices every single time.
Yeah, yeah. I always tell people, I tell him, and I tell anybody in the organization, anybody that I meet that comes up to sales, and we talk about Francisco or the sales process. I say, listen, Francisco is not a great salesperson. He's a great closer. And there's a difference. See, a lot of times I think one of the challenges is people don't understand the difference between sales and closing. And I'll tell you who really understands it. Car dealerships. Because they know if they put enough salespeople on the lot, they can show the vehicle and follow that process, take them for the test drive, do all of that and get them sat down. Then it's the sales managers they have on the floor that are the closers. And they come in, and if the sales guy can close it, they can close it. But there's a lot of times they can't. And I know that from when I sold cars, right? I did everything. I got in there, and then the closers come. Patrick Summers here, General Air Conditioning and Plumbing. I want to talk to you about our Service Plus program. Right now, for $189, you can get your heating tune-up done, a plumbing inspection, and an electrical inspection to make sure your major systems and components of your home are not only operating efficiently, but most importantly, safely. Let's get you comfortable. Let's make sure you're safe. Let's get your systems tuned up, dialed in, and ready for a new year. And in my experience, it's very difficult. That's where I think a lot of people struggle is asking for the sale, especially on a big ticket item. They're afraid of it, and they're thinking from their perspective, right? Because you weren't a believer in you weren't a believer in financing because you don't believe in financing, right? So you transferred your belief system to the consumer, and you lost out on a lot, right? And so many times people say, well, I could fix that, or that's a lot of money. I would never spend that much money. And they transfer their belief, right? And then they're afraid to ask for the sale.
Yeah, they're afraid to ask for the sale. And a lot of times what happens is the sales professional, the selling technicians or technicians do not present all the options that are available to the homeowner. They present the bottom of the barrel unit or the midline unit, but they never present the high ticket items. With me, every call that I go to, like I'm going to present a $35,000 unit, and it's going to go all the way down because guess what? It doesn't matter whether I present a $35,000 unit or a $10,000 unit. It's going to be a lot of money.
Sure.
So if I start at $10,000, I have nowhere to go.
No, exactly. That's it. It's such a great mindset too. And people want options. They always, they just don't want them. We'll take it or leave it.
They want options, and we don't know we find out what's important to them through discovery, right? But like what's important to them in the sense of we had a guy who was a customer that he lived in a manufactured home, had like a wood shop, everything was perfect, and he wanted his condenser replaced, and it wasn't that. You remember that? And there's another guy who he bought a condenser from us. The comfort advisor that was out there sold him like the base model. He found out there was a big high efficiency. His unit was only a couple of years old. He wanted it replaced. He's like, I should have been offered that, right? Another guy, brand new house, moved in. He didn't like where the condenser was situated, so we gave him a price to relocate it, and he decided, nope, I want a brand new one. So you don't know,
right,
really what kind of pushes people's buttons. And there's some people that will never buy a used car. There's other people who will only buy a used car. There's people who will keep their cars forever, keep them running, right? And there's other people that are like, hey man, I'm getting a 2-year lease. I'm getting a new one in 2 years,
want a fresh
right?
car.
And then there's the people waiting for the 2-year leases to get turned in, right?
Exactly.
So you just don't know what their buying motive is.
Yeah.
And I believe that one of the biggest hangups is salespeople go in believing their buying motive is price. So they go in and they focus too much on price. And you know, the saying goes, price is only an objection in the absence of value, right? So if you're going in and just presenting price, the lowest price is too much. But when you deliver on value and you show the value and the difference, and we have a really unique opportunity in the trades, because what we provide for homeowners is an investment in their home, and it's an applied product. Meaning, imagine if you went to the car dealership to buy a new pickup truck. Well, you can kind of shop price and maybe service, right? Imagine if that truck was shipped in a box to the dealership and the dealership had to put it together. Now, you're looking at things totally different. It's not the same truck from this dealership to this dealership, even though it's the same components in the box. How is it assembled, right? That's the same thing with the products we sell. Even though 2 identical homes, 2 identical systems, the contractor matters because they're unboxing it and installing it in your home and putting that together to make sure it works. And that's the one thing that I think salespeople in the trades really have an ability to build that value.
You got to build the value, and I think like what Patrick, going back to what he's saying is, look, when you're in, you've been in the home for 2-3 hours. The hardest part of a sales professional or salesperson comes at the end when you got to ask for the sale. And guess what? To me, when somebody tells me no, all in my mind is they just don't have enough information. So I need to get more information on why aren't they buying today? Like, what is the reason you're not moving forward with this product today? What did I miss? Is it me? Is it the company? Is it the product? Like, let's figure out what it is before I leave today. And one of my favorite sayings is like, look, I just shoot me straight. Is this the right product for you? Am I the right person for you? And if yes and yes, okay, so why aren't we moving forward?
Exactly.
Let's bring it to a conclusion. It's okay if you say no, but I want to know the reason why you're saying no. So that way I can learn from it. And most importantly, where did I fail you in not being able to present the value?
That's why you have all that jewelry in front of you.
So for our listeners out there, somebody that's in the trades or in sales, whether they're actually a technician doing work or they're working in a salon doing hair or makeup or whatever, or they're out selling business to business. What would be, if you had one thing you could tell them to get better, what would it be?
Not be afraid to ask for the sale. Look, when you go into a home or you go into a business or anything that you're doing, like you're investing time in that homeowner. You're giving them time. There's nothing more valuable than time. So when you spent 2-3 hours in the home, you have earned the right to ask for that sale. And most times people, the client says no, and they're like, okay, well, let me follow up. When can I follow up? No, there's no follow up. Clients will ask me for a business card. I'm like, look, if you want my business card, because you're not going to call me. But if you want my number, like, what's your phone number? And I'll put it in my phone and I'll call you.
Yeah.
But asking for the sale, like ask for the sale multiple times. And when a client says no, ask them why. What is the reason you're not moving forward today? You got to ask the why. Otherwise, you're going to have skinny kids.
and I think it's really important to ask for the sale, but don't do it in the way that De Niro did it in that movie when he was selling cars. What was that movie? He was a gangster, and he had to get a job. He was trying to go straight, and he was selling cars, and he's showing him the car, and he's showing him, look, there's enough room in the trunk for 2 bodies. And then they're like, oh, we have to think about it. He's like, what's there to think about?
Exactly.
And he's like, I spent all this time with you. Yeah. It's a great scene. I wish I could remember the name of the movie, but
Sage advice.
So in that ask for the sale, and in that driving away, and going back because you felt like you missed something. Share with the listeners a story. Probably you've done it multiple times, but probably like the greatest time that you did it and produced a great result.
I think like one of my favorite stories that I was, that I've done is went to a, really high end home, was going against a competitor on price. The client was just shopping price. And I said, look, okay, let's get the deal done. I'm going to match their price. I write up all the contracts, get everything done. And as I'm handing them the contract, I'm like, hold on. I stand up, I get the contract, and I rip it up. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this to you. I'm not gonna do it to myself. I said, because I stood up and started looking around the house. I'm like, dude, look at your windows, look at your furniture, look at your car outside. I go, you're used to quality stuff. I go, you want me to install a piece of junk that's gonna be loud? You're gonna be unhappy. I said, I'm not gonna do that to you, and I'm not gonna do it to myself. I said, because when you invest in general air, you're not just investing in general air. You get me with it. And I'm not going to be dealing with you for years to come because you're unhappy with the product. So if you want to do business with us, like you got to do the right thing and put the right systems in that are going to, fit your needs. Other than that, like, I'm going to walk away.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And another one, it's my favorite, couple, went to a client's house, sold them one unit, it was like $20,000. And he had 5 other units that I wanted to, convert. So one of the things that I do is I usually, when I go to a home, I go for the immediate need, which the immediate need is just the unit that you're working on, not the entire home. So I go for the immediate need. And when the install is being done, that's when I go and, try to get the other systems. So, and when I get to the house, all my contracts are already written out. I don't sit down and write them there. I do them at the office, and I'm already going with contract in hand. And with this particular client, I went to his house. I was excited because of, it was a big ticket. It was over $100,000. And the client wasn't even paying attention because I was so excited. I was talking fast. The client got turned off. And I was walking away, and I'm like, Francisco, you fucked up. Like, you lost this sale. So then I turned around, and I'm like, you know what? I just want to apologize. I said, I got too excited. I came across the wrong way, and I just want to apologize. Look, if you don't want to buy the other units, it's okay. But I just want you to know that I was just excited for the deal we were giving you, that I just came across the wrong way, so I'm sorry. So he goes, let me see that paper. He's all like, how much is it? I'm like, it's only $120,000. Yeah. He's like, give me your pen.
and that's the difference between selling and closing, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are like, they think sales are bad. Sales are good, right? Because people have wants and needs. We all have them. And there is a great book. I will tell you, I'll mention, whether you're a fan or not, Grant Cardone wrote a book called Sell or Be Sold. And the reality is we are either selling or we're being sold constantly in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our profession. And to me, I think it's one of the greatest professions because you can control your income, you can solve people's problems, right? You can give them solutions they didn't know existed. And the most important thing for me, and I believe for anybody that is in sales, business, well, this goes for anything, relationships, but in the sales side is it's always service above sales, right? And when you take care of the service side of things, meaning not like fixing stuff, but like serve that individual, right? And there's a great book out there. If you want a great book on reading, to read on sales, The Go-Giver Sells More. And just in the title, you can probably get an idea what it's about. But when you're delivering ultimate value and you're providing solutions to people, and that's a great thing too, I think, when you're in sales, is there are solutions to problems. A lot of times people don't even know they have the problem because they think it's normal, right? They think it's normal. And then when you can educate them and give them those options, man, you change lives. You really change lives. And so it's.
And I think, like you're saying, changing lives. Like, you're not only changing the client's life. When you become a really good sales professional, and you dedicate to your craft, to sharpening the saw every single day, like, it will literally change your family tree. It will literally change your family tree. There's very few places or industries that, especially in the trades, where with with dedication, with training, without a college education, you become a millionaire. And you can make $1 million a year, like no problem as a sales professional in the trades. I know techs, comfort advisors that make over $1 million a year selling air conditioning.
And with that said, you just don't fall into that.
No, you got to educate yourself. You got to train.
So where you're at now, owning a business, running a sales department, out there actively helping sell and close deals. Do you still train?
Every single day, 7 days a week. My wife hates it because and I'm serious. I usually on average invest 1 to 2 hours a night training. And it's whether it's, watching videos, going over the calls that, that I ran, and then going in my head, like, how did I close it? What did I do? How did I do it? How do I duplicate that? But I still train every single day, 1 to 2 hours a day. And I tell our comfort advisors, our sales team, I said, look, I train myself because I never know if we're going to be at max capacity and I have to go run a lead. And I got to, take care of our clients. Like this past month, we were a little short on, one of our comfort advisors was out. And I had to go, run a couple of calls. Just happened that I ran 4 calls, closed 4 of them, and ended up selling $120,000 on 4 calls. So you always got to be ready.
Always got to be ready. Well, the key takeaways again was, and this is just pulling from what you have shared with us, is first and foremost your lesson when you were cleaning houses and got grapefruit instead of money is
Clear message.
a clear message, right? And then there was have mentors, train, develop, and then process and consistency.
Absolutely.
Which there's not a lot there, right? There's not. I think I just described what a championship NFL team has to do.
It's the same recipe.
Yeah.
It's the same recipe for greatness.
And then I think the most important thing, like when you're in a home as a comfort advisor or a technician, is look, get the homeowner involved in the process. Take them to the unit, show them exactly what's going on, show them exactly what you're going to be doing. And look, one of the things that it was life-changing for me too, and it really helped me skyrocket my career, was understanding my way of learning. And I'm an auditory. I learn by listening. You got to know your audience and how do they learn. So whether you got to write it, you got to show it to them, you got to draw it out, whatever it may be, but you got to understand how your customer, how their brain works and how they are able to retain information.
And that's such another great point that you point out, which I want to ask this question. If you're familiar with the DISC or different personality styles, right? If you know your style and you know who you're speaking to style, it's a secret weapon, right? Because, Francisco, are you going to sell to me the same way you would sell to my wife?
Absolutely not.
Why?
You're hiding.
And so what do I want if you're going to present
You
to
want
me?
to be direct. You want to the facts. You want factual information that it's going to be easy for you to make a decision. So what's in it for you? How much is going to cost? And most importantly, what value are you getting with that product?
Yeah, and then get out of my house, right? And you better deliver on everything you said. Now, if you sell to my wife, what approach are you taking?
Oh, she's going to be a high eye, where she's going to be how beautiful the unit's going to look. The emotional part of it, doesn't worry about anything. It's going to be peace of mind. It's going to be comfort. Doesn't have to worry about the unit ever breaking down. So you just got to, tailor to your audience.
And if you tried to sell to me that way and you started talking, like the worst thing you do is come in and ask me about my family, how the day is, how your week's going, this, that, the other thing. Like just come in and say, give me the facts. You go do that to my wife. She wants to like the person she's dealing with. She wants to feel good about the person she's dealing with.
Trust.
And she's going to want to feel good about the company, and she's going to want to know that he sees the dogs, right, and talks about the dogs. Me, I'm like, if you're in my house more than 30 minutes, right, and you don't have an answer that I ask, I care about the product, the price, and did I get a feeling you you're going to stand behind what you do, right? I've got to like the cut of your jib, as they say, right? And it's not, and it's usually going to be because you know me, you're direct. You're like, I was on a call yesterday, insurance sales, and they would ask me questions, and then they would, oh, that's wonderful, oh, fantastic, congratulations. I was like, I got off the call. I'm like, you
Just blowing
yeah,
sunshine.
because they didn't sense from me, like they should have sensed on how I was answering questions and changed how they approached me. But they stayed in their script, right? So now scripts are important. You don't necessarily change the script, but there's a great lesson in the military. The military has, they teach navigation, land navigation, right? And so what happens when the terrain doesn't match the map, right? Follow the terrain.
Yeah.
Right? Adapt to the terrain. And that's what they teach, right? I'm probably not saying it as technically or as elegantly
But it
as
makes
the
perfect
navigation
sense, yeah.
class teaches it. But if you've got a map that says this and the terrain says this and you get there, don't be like, well, the map says this. No, adapt to the terrain. Follow the terrain. So with that, I think you have shared a lot with our listeners. And I want to ask if there's somebody out there listening who is kind of like you were, and they're on this journey, and they want to reach out to you. Is that possible?
Absolutely.
How do they get a hold of you?
They could call my wife. No. No, they can email me at francisco@collegegeneral.com. I'll be happy to get on a phone call with anybody. I love giving back. One of the things that I love doing because they did it for me is they helped me through my journey, and I have no problem helping somebody in their journey because it's so rewarding. One of the best things to see right now, especially with our technicians, is being able to see technicians that when they started with us were making minimum wage, and now some of these guys are making $100,000, $200,000 a year. And their lives have completely changed. They're buying homes. They have families. It's the most rewarding thing ever.
Yeah. Well, thank you, brother, man. I really
Great
appreciate
stuff,
you sharing
Francisco.
that. That's going to conclude this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to, again, thank Francisco for making
Thank
time for us. He's a very important human being, very busy. Mike Acosta, he's amazing co-host, keeps me on track. And I'd like to thank the team behind the camera on the other side of this. It's an amazing team from camera to producing, editing, everything like that. Find us on all social media. Go to YouTube. Find us at the Tradepreneur Show. Like us, follow us. Appreciate the support. We're going to keep great content coming your way.